My neighbor tried to trap me into raising his daughter's baby. When I refused, he told me, "Your bitch mother raised a wuss." So I clocked him. As revenge, he broke into my house hammered AF. After speaking to him, I found out why. I live beside the definition of the girl next door. Athena was naturally beautiful, very intelligent, basically gave the vibe of Rory Gilmore from Gilmore Girls, a show I only watched because she told me to. Me and her family have always been pretty close. They were the type to invite you to everything and make you feel like you're one of them. And because I don't have a dad, this meant everything to me, especially when I got old enough to be invited to his gun range visits or weekend golf trips. And don't get me wrong, I love my mom. She's actually my favorite person, but she is so kind that she never forced me out of my comfort zone. And that was something Athena's dad did, and being an ex-veteran made him an even better role model. Even with how things ended, I still attribute a lot of my chivalry and gentlemanlike qualities to him. But of course, at the time, I didn't appreciate it, because my main motivation was getting close to Athena, not even in a shirny way. She was the type of girl you want to make pasta for, to spoil her with everything you have. Sometimes I could have sworn she was flirting back, but either way, I always told myself that if we ended up as just friends, it would still be a W, because she was an amazing person that I wanted in my life. So when she started dating Trent, a guy from our high school, I didn't even care, because by that point, she was more like my little sister anyway. The only one who cared was her dad. He'd say he was bad news, that he didn't trust his intentions, just normal dad stuff. One day I was with Athena when she started crying her eyes out. I proceeded to ask the most intelligent question I could think of. "Are you on your period or something?" She just stared at me before crying 10 times harder. She didn't say anything, just left to go to the bathroom. And when she returned a few seconds later, she had sticks in her hands. Like, those blue and white clear blue sticks. There must have been like 10 of them, all with double lines. I honestly couldn't even look at her. Not because I was judging, but because I was a 16-year-old boy with the emotional capacity of a chicken nugget. That's when she pulled out her big black iPhone and went on to Snapchat. There it was. The arrow beside Trent's name was gray. He had blocked her. My stomach twisted, and I gently took the phone from her and read their texts. I'll summarize. His final message read, "What the actual F? I thought you promised you took plan B." That was it. Nothing else. She still hadn't said anything, and I swear I thought this was some weird prank. Athena, I know. It's awful," she interrupted before starting to cry even harder. I asked her if she told her parents yet, and that's when she finally revealed her ulterior motive. "No, I was actually hoping you would do it for me." Her voice was meek, like a child asking their mom for a third scoop of ice cream. I wanted to bury my face in my hands, to sigh and pinch the bridge of my nose, but instead, I just nodded, because I knew she was right. It was better coming from me. I never knew that her dad would blame me. I began to zone out and think of how to do it. "Can you please just do it right now, Daniel? I just want to get it over with." Her timidness had disappeared and was now replaced with an anxious urgency. My face contorted into a completely straight face, like the emoji. I grabbed the sticks and went downstairs. Her mom wasn't home, but her dad was. His mouth stretched open so wide I thought his jaw would break. His eyes practically popped out of his skull. "Trent," was all he could manage to say. I nodded, and his fists immediately clenched as he grabbed his keys to go find him, but I stopped him. "Sir, can I give my 2 cents?" The word sir immediately disarmed him as much as I'd hoped, so he let me continue. "I think you should just focus on comforting Athena. She's very scared right now." His fist loosened. He put his hand on my shoulder and just nodded. "Son, can you stay the night tonight?" he asked. The house was tense, and I knew my mom would let me, so I agreed. I slept on Athena's floor that night just listening to her cry because she kept telling me to leave her the F alone. The next day, her dad woke me up at 5 a.m. and pulled me into another room. "Son, you come from a good family. Me and my wife see you as our own." I furrowed my eyebrows, not liking where things were heading. "I'm getting old, son. I won't be around to keep Athena safe forever, let alone her baby." He took a deep breath and again put his hand on my shoulder. "Sometimes in life you have to be a man and take care of what's yours." Confusion flooded my brain. "Sir, I'm not raising Athena's baby. You know I want to join the Corps." "What?" Suddenly his fatherly love was replaced with anger. "After everything, I didn't know your betch mother raised a pussy." I immediately clocked him. Ex-veteran or not, there was no way I'd let someone say that about my mother. I pushed him off me as hard as I could and stormed out. But little did I know, her dad wouldn't let me get away so easily. Athena's dad shot up from his chair the next day during a meeting at the school, his face turning a deep shade of red. "What are you talking about? You told me." "I never told you anything," Athena cried, finally finding her voice, tears streaming down her flushed cheeks. "You just decided Daniel should be responsible because you like him better than Trent," her mother gasped, looking between her husband and daughter with wide eyes, her hand flying to her mouth. "Is this true?" The fluorescent lights of the counselor's office buzzed overhead, making everyone look sickly and pale. The air conditioning hummed too loudly in the background, a stark contrast to the heated conversation unfolding. Ms. Thompson, the school counselor, maintained her composure, though I could see the shock in her eyes. "Mr. Collins, did you knowingly spread false information about Daniel?" Athena's dad ignored the question, pointing at me instead, his finger trembling with rage. "This boy has been like a son to me for years. I taught him everything he knows about being a man, and when my daughter needed someone to step up, she needed her father to support her." My mom interrupted, her voice steady but firm, her eyes blazing with protective fury. "Not to manipulate a 16-year-old boy into taking responsibility for someone else's actions." The meeting dissolved into chaos after that. Athena's mom was horrified, learning for the first time that her husband had been pressuring their daughter to lie. Ms. Thompson tried to mediate, but Athena's dad stormed out, slamming the door behind him so hard the windows rattled. The plastic chairs in the counselor's office squeaked as people shifted uncomfortably. The tension in the room was so thick you could almost touch it, hanging in the air like an invisible fog that made it hard to breathe. I thought that would be the end of it. The truth was out. Ms. Thompson promised to help clear my name in the community. Athena apologized tearfully, explaining how her dad had convinced her that pinning it on me was For the best, since Trent had abandoned her. But I was wrong. Things were about to get much worse. The next morning, I woke up to my mom shaking me frantically, the early sunlight streaming through my blinds. Daniel, get up. We have a problem. I rubbed my eyes, confused by the urgency in her voice. What's going on? She handed me her phone, her lips pressed into a thin line. On the screen was a social media post from Athena's dad. Disappointed to learn the young man I mentored for years has been spreading lies about my family to cover his tracks. Some people will do anything to avoid responsibility. The truth will come out. My stomach dropped like a stone. He was doubling down. There's more, Mom said grimly. Check your phone. I had dozens of messages from classmates, sharing screenshots of posts Athena's dad had made in neighborhood groups. He was telling everyone that I had manipulated his daughter into lying to protect me, that I had brainwashed her because I was afraid of responsibility. The bright screen of my phone illuminated my face in the dim morning light of my bedroom. Each notification sound made me flinch as more and more messages poured in, each one worse than the last. The familiar comfort of my room now felt like it was closing in on me. This is insane, I muttered, scrolling through the messages, my hands shaking slightly. Some people were defending me, but many more seemed to believe him. After all, he was a respected veteran and community member. I was just a kid. When I got to school, the whispers followed me everywhere. Even teachers who had seemed sympathetic before now looked at me with suspicion. Had I somehow manipulated Athena? Was I the bad guy here? The hallways felt longer, the stairs more intense, as if everyone was dissecting my every move. The squeaking of sneakers on the linoleum floors seemed unnaturally loud as I walked to my locker. Conversations would stop when I approached, only to resume in hushed tones once I passed. The familiar school smells of floor cleaner and cafeteria food now made me feel nauseated. Lunch was the worst. I sat alone, picking at my food, the cafeteria noise seeming to fade away as I retreated into my thoughts. Then Zane, one of Trent's friends, approached my table, his swagger unmistakable. So you're the one trying to pin Athena's baby on Trent? He asked loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, his voice dripping with contempt. That's not what happened, I said, keeping my voice low, fighting the urge to stand up. Trent is the actual father. He blocked Athena on everything when she told him she was pregnant. Zane laughed, a harsh sound that drew more attention our way. Yeah, because she was trying to trap him with some other dude's baby. Everyone knows you two had a thing. The plastic fork in my hand bent under the pressure of my grip. The smell of overcooked cafeteria food turned my stomach as I tried to maintain my composure. Around us, other students pretended not to listen while clearly hanging on every word. We never did, I insisted, feeling my face heat up as nearby conversations quieted. We were just friends. That's not what her dad is saying, he smirked, crossing his arms. I stood up, abandoning my lunch. Her dad is lying. As I walked away, I heard Zane call after me. Coward! The word hung in the air, following me down the hallway. It took everything in me not to turn around and punch him like I had Athena's dad, but that would only make things worse. After school, I found my locker vandalized with the word liar scratched into the metal. The jagged letters caught the fluorescent hallway lights, making them seem to glow accusingly. My fingers traced the scratches, feeling the sharp edges where someone had dug deep into the paint. I reported it to the principal, but he just sighed and said, "These situations are always complicated, Daniel. Try to stay out of drama." His dismissive tone made it clear whose side he was on. When I got home, Mom was on the phone, her expression grim. When she hung up, she looked exhausted, the lines around her eyes more pronounced than usual. "That was my boss," she said, running a hand through her hair. "Apparently, Athena's father called him today, saying I was raising a son with no moral compass who refuses to take responsibility for his actions." I felt sick, guilt washing over me even though I'd done nothing wrong. "What did your boss say?" "He told me to handle my personal issues outside of work," she sighed, rubbing her temples. "Daniel, this is getting out of hand." The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence that followed. Through the window, I could see Athena's house across the yard, the place that had once felt like a second home now looking foreign and threatening. "I know, I'm sorry," I said, the weight of it all pressing down on me. She hugged me tight, her familiar scent comforting. "This isn't your fault, but we need to figure out how to stop this before it gets worse." That night, I got a text from an unknown number. "It's Athena, new phone. Can we meet somewhere private? I need to talk to you." I was hesitant, but agreed to meet her at the library the next day after school. It was public enough to be safe, but quiet enough for a private conversation. When I arrived, Athena was already there, sitting at a table in the back corner. She looked terrible, pale, with dark circles under her eyes, her usually shiny hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "My dad took my phone," she said as I sat down, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is my mom's old one. She gave it to me secretly." The library smelled of old books and furniture polish. Around us, students hunched over textbooks or whispered in small groups. The soft yellow light from the reading lamps created small pools of brightness in the otherwise dim corner where we sat. "Are you okay?" I asked, genuinely concerned despite everything. She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "He's out of control. After the meeting with Ms. Thompson, he was so angry. He's convinced himself that you manipulated me into lying." She lowered her voice even further, leaning across the table. "My mom and I are staying at my aunt's house. She doesn't believe him either." Relief washed over me. At least Athena and her mom knew the truth. "He's telling everyone I'm mentally unstable because of pregnancy hormones," she continued, twisting a tissue between her fingers. "That I don't know what I'm saying. He even—" She trailed off, looking down at the wooden table. "What?" I prompted, dread building in my chest. "He's trying to get a lawyer to file for paternity testing. He says once they prove you're the father, you'll have to pay child support." My blood ran cold, the library suddenly feeling too warm. "But I'm not the father. The test will show that." "I know, but he doesn't care. He just wants to drag your name through the mud as much as possible before then. She wiped her eyes with the crumpled tissue. I'm so sorry, Daniel. This is all my fault. The wooden chair creaked beneath me as I shifted uncomfortably. A librarian pushed a cart of books nearby, the wheels squeaking softly on the carpet. The normalcy of the scene felt surreal compared to the chaos of our lives. It's not your fault, I said automatically, meaning it. It's your dad's. And Trent's. She nodded miserably. I tried contacting Trent again. I made a new Snapchat account and everything. He just blocked that one too. We sat in silence for a moment, both lost in our thoughts. Then I had an idea, the beginnings of a plan forming in my mind. Over the next hour, we formulated a strategy. If Athena's dad wanted to play dirty, we needed to be smarter. We couldn't just defend ourselves. We needed to actively prove the truth. First, Athena agreed to write down everything. How she started dating Trent, when they became intimate, when she found out she was pregnant, and how her father had pressured her to blame me. She signed and dated it, her handwriting shaky but determined, and we made copies at the library printer. The printer hummed and clicked as it produced multiple copies of her statement. The smell of warm paper and ink filled our corner of the library. Athena's hand trembled as she signed each copy, but her jaw was set with determination I hadn't seen in weeks. Next, we needed to find Trent. As much as I hated the guy for abandoning Athena, he was the key to ending this nightmare. If he admitted he was the father, Athena's dad would have no leg to stand on. I think I know where he might be, Athena said, her eyes lighting up for the first time. His cousin Justin works at that auto shop on Maple Street. Trent was always hanging out there. The next day after school, I headed to the auto shop, the spring air warm on my face as I walked. The scent of freshly cut grass and blooming flowers contrasted with the anxiety churning in my stomach. Cars rushed past on the main road, their noise fading as I turned onto the quieter side street where the auto shop stood. Sure enough, I spotted Trent in the back, working on a car, his hands greasy and a smudge of oil on his cheek. I steeled myself and walked in, the smell of motor oil and rubber filling my nostrils. We need to talk, I said, approaching him, trying to keep my voice level. He looked up, confused at first, then recognition dawned in his eyes. You're Athena's neighbor, right? Look, man, I don't want any trouble, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. Then you should stop causing it, I replied, standing my ground. Athena's dad is telling everyone I'm the father of her baby. Trent's eyes widened, genuine surprise crossing his face. What? That's messed up. Yeah, it is, especially since we both know it's yours. He glanced around nervously, lowering his voice. Keep your voice down, dude. I can't deal with this right now. The concrete floor of the garage was stained with oil spots. In the background, a radio played rock music, occasionally drowned out by the sound of power tools. The smell of gasoline and grease was overwhelming in the enclosed space. You don't have a choice, I said firmly, stepping closer. Athena's dad is trying to ruin my life. He's spreading rumors, calling my mom's workplace, and now he's talking about paternity tests and child support. Trent wiped his greasy hands on a rag again, looking uncomfortable, his eyes darting toward the shop entrance. Look, I'm sorry about that, but what do you want me to do? Tell the truth. Admit you're the father. He laughed bitterly, tossing the rag aside. No way. My parents would call me. I'm trying to get a scholarship, man. I can't have a baby right now. I felt my anger rising, my fists clenching at my sides. So you're just going to let Athena deal with this alone? Let her dad destroy my reputation? It's not my problem that her dad picked you to be the replacement dad, Trent said, turning back to the car. Maybe you should have thought about that before getting so close to their family. The wrench in his hand caught the light as he turned away from me. My reflection distorted in the polished chrome of the car he was working on, making me look twisted and unfamiliar. The air in the garage felt thick with tension and unspoken words. I wanted to punch him like I had Athena's dad, but I restrained myself. Violence wouldn't solve this. Instead, I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. Fine. Then I'll just post these screenshots of your Snapchat messages to Athena, the ones where you admit the baby is yours and blame her for not taking Plan B. Trent's head snapped up, his cocky demeanor faltering. You're bluffing. Those messages disappeared. I smiled grimly, showing him the screen where Athena had sent me the screenshots. Athena took screenshots before you blocked her. Want to see? His face paled, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. You wouldn't. Try me. All I want is for you to tell the truth. You don't have to be involved with the baby if you don't want to, but you need to stop Athena's dad from destroying my life. After a tense standoff, Trent agreed to record a video statement admitting he was the father. He looked miserable doing it, his voice monotone and his eyes avoiding the camera, but I didn't care. This wasn't about him or his feelings. It was about clearing my name. With the video secured on my phone, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, but my relief was short-lived. When I got home, Mom was waiting for me with a serious expression, her work clothes still on, and her purse beside her on the couch. Daniel, Athena's father came by the house today. He left this. She handed me an official-looking envelope, the paper thick and expensive. Inside was a letter from a lawyer, demanding a paternity test and threatening legal action for defamation of character and emotional distress caused to the Collins family. The paper felt heavy in my hands, the formal legal language swimming before my eyes. Our living room, usually a place of comfort, now felt invaded by the threat contained in that envelope. The ticking of the wall clock seemed louder than usual in the tense silence. He's suing us? I asked incredulously, my voice cracking. He's threatening to, Mom corrected, her calm demeanor reassuring. But this is just intimidation. He knows he doesn't have a case. I showed her the video from Trent and Athena's written statement. She looked relieved but still worried, her brow furrowed as she watched the video. This might not be enough, she said. He seems determined to destroy your reputation regardless of the facts. She was right. The next day at school, I overheard two teachers discussing how that poor Collins girl was being manipulated by that troubled boy next door. The rumors had evolved. Now I wasn't just a deadbeat dad, but a manipulative liar forcing Athena to cover for me. Their voices carried from the teacher's lounge as I passed by, the door slightly ajar. The smell of coffee and microwave popcorn wafted into the hallway as I froze, unable to move as I heard them discussing me as if I were some kind of criminal mastermind instead of a confused teenager. Things came to a head that weekend. Mom and I were grocery shopping when we ran into Athena's dad in the produce section. He looked unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes and rumpled clothes. When he saw us, his expression hardened, his jaw clenching visibly. "You," he said, pointing at me, his voice carrying through the store. "You turned my daughter against me." Mom stepped in front of me protectively, her shopping basket still in hand. "That's enough. Leave my son alone. Your son is a coward who won't take responsibility." He spat, his finger still pointing accusingly. People were starting to stare, an elderly woman with a cart pausing to watch the confrontation. I felt my face burning with embarrassment and anger, my hands trembling slightly. The bright fluorescent lights of the grocery store made everything seem harsh and exposed. The cold air from the refrigerated produce cases raised goosebumps on my arms. The smell of fresh fruits and vegetables mixed with the tension in the air, creating a surreal sensory experience. "The only one not taking responsibility is Trent," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And you, for spreading lies about me." His face contorted with rage, a vein pulsing in his forehead. "You ungrateful little—" "Mr. Collins," a firm voice interrupted. We turned to see Mrs. Patel, the community center director, standing there with her shopping cart. "I think you need to calm down. This doesn't concern you," he growled, his attention momentarily diverted. "When you're harassing a minor in public, it concerns me," she replied calmly. "And as the director of the community center, it concerns me when a respected member of our community is spreading harmful rumors." Athena's dad looked around, suddenly aware of the audience they'd attracted, the whispers starting to circulate. Without another word, he abandoned his cart and stormed out of the store, the automatic doors barely opening in time. Mrs. Patel turned to us. "Are you both all right?" Mom nodded, still shaken. "Thank you for stepping in. This has gone far enough," Mrs. Patel said, her dark eyes concerned. "I've been hearing the rumors, and I've spoken with several neighbors who are concerned about Mr. Collins's behavior. I think it's time we address this as a community." She proposed a community meeting at the center, a chance for the truth to come out in a controlled, mediated environment. Mom and I agreed immediately, hope flickering for the first time in weeks. The meeting was set for the following Friday evening. All week, I was a bundle of nerves. What if no one believed us? What if Athena's dad convinced everyone I was the villain? The questions circled in my mind, keeping me awake at night. Each night I tossed and turned in bed, the sheets tangling around my legs as I replayed worst-case scenarios in my head. The digital clock on my nightstand seemed to move in slow motion, marking each sleepless hour with its red glow. When Friday came, I was surprised by the turnout. It seemed like half the neighborhood was there, sitting in folding chairs in the community center's main room. Mrs. Patel had arranged for a local counselor, Dr. Baker, to facilitate the discussion. Athena was there with her mother, sitting near the front, both looking nervous but determined. Her dad arrived late, looking defiant, his chin raised as he took a seat in the back. I sat with Mom, trying to appear calmer than I felt, my leg bouncing nervously under the chair. The community center smelled of floor polish and coffee from the refreshment table in the corner. The metal folding chairs creaked whenever someone shifted their weight. Overhead, fluorescent lights hummed softly, casting everyone in an unflattering glow that made the tension in the room even more apparent. Dr. Baker started by explaining that they were there to address concerning rumors that were affecting multiple families in the community. She established ground rules: no interrupting, no personal attacks, everyone would have a chance to speak. The room was silent, the tension palpable. Athena went first. With trembling hands but a steady voice, she told the whole story: dating Trent, finding out she was pregnant, his abandonment, and her father's pressure to blame me instead. "Daniel has been my friend for years," she concluded, her voice gaining strength. "Nothing more. My dad couldn't accept that Trent was the father because he hated him. He thought if everyone believed it was Daniel's baby, Daniel would be forced to step up and be there for me and the baby." Her voice echoed slightly in the quiet room. A ceiling fan spun lazily overhead, creating a soft background noise that contrasted with the intensity of her words. The small bump of her pregnancy was visible beneath her loose sweater, a physical reminder of what was at stake. Her dad tried to interrupt several times, but Dr. Baker firmly reminded him of the ground rules, her hand raised to stop his outbursts. When it was my turn, I shared my side. How I'd been there for Athena as a friend, how her dad had tried to pressure me into taking responsibility, and how he'd spread rumors when I refused. My voice shook at first but grew stronger as I continued. "I have evidence," I said, pulling out my phone. "Trent admitted on video that he's the father, and I have screenshots of their conversations before he blocked her." Dr. Baker took my phone and connected it to the projector. The room watched in silence as Trent's confession played on the screen, followed by the damning Snapchat messages. A collective murmur went through the crowd when they saw Trent's words about Plan B. The projector hummed loudly in the silent room, casting a blue-white glow over everyone's faces. The image of Trent's reluctant confession was magnified on the wall, his discomfort visible to everyone. Some people shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the metal chairs squeaking in the silence. When it was Athena's dad's turn to speak, he looked around the room, seeing the judgment in people's eyes. For a moment, I thought he might apologize or at least admit the truth. Instead, he stood up and pointed at me, his finger trembling. "This boy manipulated my daughter. He turned her against me. That's enough, Richard," Athena's mom interrupted, standing up, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. "Stop lying. Our daughter is pregnant by a boy who abandoned her. Instead of supporting her, you've been trying to force an innocent boy to take responsibility. You've
You've been spreading rumors, threatening lawsuits, and harassing Daniel and his mother. It needs to stop. The room was silent, every eye on Athena's dad.
He looked around, seeing no allies. Even his friends from the neighborhood were looking at him with disappointment and disbelief, some shaking their heads. "This meeting is a joke," he muttered, grabbing his jacket. "You'll all see the truth eventually." As he stormed toward the exit, he paused beside me. "This isn't over," he whispered before walking out, the door slamming behind him. The sound of the door echoed through the room, followed by a collective exhale, as if everyone had been holding their breath. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows through the windows and bathing the room in a warm orange glow that seemed at odds with the tension of the moment. The rest of the meeting was surprisingly supportive. Neighbors who had believed the rumors apologized. Mrs. Patel announced that she would personally speak with the school administration to ensure they understood the situation. Dr. Baker offered counseling services to both Athena and me. As people began to leave, Athena approached me hesitantly, her baby bump now visible beneath her loose sweater. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not hating me through all this." "I don't hate you," I replied honestly. "Your dad put you in an impossible position." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "My mom's filing for divorce. We're staying with my aunt permanently now." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded, shuffling my feet awkwardly. "I miss how things used to be," she continued, "when we were just friends and everything was simple." "Me too," I admitted, "but I don't think we can go back to that." She looked sad but understanding. "I know, too much has happened." The next few weeks were quieter. The rumors at school gradually died down as the truth spread. My locker was repainted, and teachers stopped giving me suspicious looks. Mom's boss even apologized for believing the rumors. Athena's dad moved out of their house. I occasionally saw him driving through the neighborhood, his car moving too fast down our street, but he never approached me again. According to Athena, he was seeing a therapist as part of their divorce agreement. Spring flowers bloomed in the yards along our street, bringing color back to a neighborhood that had felt gray and hostile for months. The warmer weather meant open windows and the sounds of lawnmowers and children playing, normal everyday sounds that had been drowned out by the drama. I was starting to think the worst was behind us when I got home from school one day to find our front door ajar. Mom wasn't due home for hours. Cautiously, I pushed the door open, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hello?" The living room was a mess. Cushions thrown around, pictures knocked off the walls, a lamp lying broken on the floor. My heart raced as I moved through the house, calling out again, fear gripping me. The familiar smell of our home was tainted with something else, the sharp scent of alcohol. Broken glass crunched under my shoes as I carefully made my way through the living room. The silence in the house felt oppressive and threatening, broken only by the ticking of the wall clock and my own rapid breathing. In the kitchen, I found Athena's dad sitting at our table, a half-empty bottle of whiskey in front of him, his eyes bloodshot and unfocused. "How did you get in here?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady despite my fear, my hand reaching for my phone in my pocket. He looked up, swaying slightly in his seat. "You ruined my life," he slurred. "My wife left me. My daughter hates me. Everyone looks at me like I'm crazy." I backed toward the door, my fingers fumbling with my phone. "You need to leave. I gave you everything," he continued as if I hadn't spoken, his words running together. "Treated you like a son, and this is how you repay me?" "You tried to force me to raise someone else's baby," I reminded him, my back against the wall now. "You spread lies about me when I refused." The kitchen tiles felt cold through my socks. Sunlight streamed through the window over the sink, creating a strange contrast with the dark situation unfolding. The smell of whiskey grew stronger as he gestured wildly, some of it spilling onto our kitchen table. He stood up suddenly, knocking the chair over with a loud crash. "I was trying to do what was best for Athena. No, you were trying to control her life. And mine." He took a step toward me, and I tensed, ready to defend myself if necessary. But instead of attacking, he just laughed bitterly, the sound hollow and sad. "You think you're so much better than me? So righteous? You'll understand someday, when you have kids. Sometimes you have to make hard choices for their own good. Lying isn't a hard choice. It's just wrong." He stared at me for a long moment, then seemed to deflate, his shoulders sagging. "You're just a kid. You don't understand anything." Before I could respond, the front door opened, and Mom walked in. She froze when she saw Athena's dad, her eyes widening in alarm. "What are you doing in my house?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the fear I could see in her eyes. He turned to her, swaying slightly. "Your son destroyed my family. Get out," Mom said firmly, before I called the police. To my surprise, he didn't argue. He just grabbed his bottle and brushed past her, muttering under his breath, the screen door slamming behind him. The sudden silence after he left was deafening. The house smelled of his whiskey and sweat, an intrusion that lingered even after he was gone. Outside, birds chirped normally, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded inside our home. Once he was gone, Mom locked the door and turned to me, her hands shaking slightly. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" I shook my head. "No, he just broke in and started rambling. I think he's hammered." She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police. Breaking and entering is a crime." I hesitated, memories flashing through my mind. His hand on my shoulder at the GN range, teaching me to swing a golf club. The pride in his eyes when I fixed my first flat tire. "Do we have to?" Mom looked at me with understanding, her expression softening. "Daniel, I know you cared about him, but his behavior has become dangerous. We need to protect ourselves." She was right. As much as it hurt, Athena's dad had crossed too many lines. The man who had been like a father to me was gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. The police came and took our statement, the officers' radios crackling in our living room. They found Athena's dad at his apartment and arrested him for breaking and entering. When they searched his car, they found a notebook filled with rambling entries about me, Athena, and his plans to expose the truth. The next day, Athena called me, crying, "I'm so sorry about my dad. Mom and I had no idea he would do something like this. It's not your fault." I assured her, sitting on my bed and staring out the window at their house. The police showed us his notebook, she continued, her voice breaking. He's been obsessed with this for weeks. The therapist thinks he had some kind of breakdown. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt guilty, wondering if I could have handled things differently, but another part knew this wasn't my fault. Athena's dad had made his own choices. What happens now? I asked, watching a bird land on the fence between our yards. He's being held for psychiatric evaluation, she explained. After that, who knows? Mom got a restraining order for us. You probably should too. The suggestion felt surreal. A restraining order against the man who taught me how to change a tire, who took me fishing when I was 12, but after breaking into our house, it was necessary. As spring turned to summer, things slowly returned to normal. The rumors died down completely. Athena started showing more obviously, and people at school finally accepted that Trent was the father. He still wanted nothing to do with the baby, but at least he'd stopped denying it. The trees filled out with thick green leaves, creating dappled shadows on the sidewalks. The air grew warmer, filled with the scent of cut grass and barbecues. Life continued its normal rhythms, healing the wounds of the past months with the simple passage of time. Athena and I remained cordial but distant. Too much had happened between our families to go back to how things were. Sometimes I caught her looking at me in the hallway with a sad expression, and I knew she was thinking the same thing. One afternoon in late May, Mrs. Patel stopped by our house with news, her usual professional demeanor softened by genuine concern. Athena's father completed his psychiatric evaluation, she told us. He's been diagnosed with adjustment disorder and is starting treatment. His lawyer reached out to me asking if you would be willing to drop the restraining order as part of his recovery process. Mom looked at me, leaving the decision up to me. I thought about everything that had happened, the lies, the rumors, the broken trust, but I also thought about the man who had been like a father to me for years. I'll consider it, I said, but only after he completes treatment and apologizes to me and my mom, and to Athena and her mother. Mrs. Patel nodded approvingly. I think that's very mature, Daniel. I'll pass along your conditions. As she left, Mom put her arm around my shoulders. You're a good person. You know that? I shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. I just want this all to be over. It will be, she promised. And then you can focus on your future. The core is still waiting for you. I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Despite everything Athena's dad had done, he hadn't managed to derail my plans or break my spirit. I was still standing, still moving forward. The next day at school, I passed Athena in the hallway. Instead of avoiding eye contact like we usually did, she stopped, her hand resting on her growing belly. I heard you might drop the restraining order against my dad, she said, her voice quiet in the busy hallway. Maybe, if he gets help and apologizes. She nodded. That's fair. After a pause, she added, for what it's worth, I'm sorry for everything. Not just what my dad did, but for asking you to tell my parents about the pregnancy in the first place. I put you in an impossible position. You were scared, I said simply. I understand that. Still, you've been a better friend to me than I deserved. As we stood there awkwardly, I realized something. Despite all the pain and drama, I didn't regret being there for Athena when she needed someone. That's what friends do. They show up, even when it's hard. Good luck with everything, I said, with the baby and all. She gave me a small smile, the first genuine one I'd seen in months. Thanks. Good luck with the core. As I watched her walk away, I felt a sense of closure. The girl next door would always be a part of my life story, but our chapters together were ending. It was time for both of us to start new ones.